we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Roll call. Everybody's present except Jessica Bays. Item 3, adoption of the agenda. We didn't have any, did we?
No.
No changes?
No changes to the agenda.
I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda. All in favor? 6-0. All right. Item 4, opportunity for visitors. Okay, looks like we have one, Mr. Stout. If you can step up and then state your name and address for the record.
Wayne Stout, 267 West 4th,
Okay.
Hoisington, Kansas.
Thank you. We'll have you just limit your remarks to the designated topic, and then you'll have 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
5 minutes to do.
Thank you for letting me talk to the board. I understand if I have to be cut off about this. About 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I think it was first Wednesday in December. No, it was in November. We had an accident on, I'm sure everybody's aware of it, we had an accident on the school grounds at the Roosevelt Elementary School. My 5-year-old granddaughter got, well, she's missing 2 teeth. Well, she's missing 1 tooth. One tooth got knocked out of her head, and then the other one was jammed up inside of her mouth. And it was due to an unsecured volleyball goal. Who would have thought that something like that could even happen? I mean, I didn't. I mean, it got by me because I didn't think it could ever happen. But anyway, before I forget, I want to commend that administrator at Roosevelt, Ms. Walker. She immediately notified the parents. Obviously, we had a scene with lots of kids, and yeah, it wasn't good. Anyway, she did everything right. As far as I'm concerned, she did. She notified the parents, and we immediately rushed Mary to her dentist in Hutchinson. And before you even know it, Miss Walker was, with her empathy, was calling to find out how she's doing. Obviously, Miss Walker was very upset about the deal. And as things settled out, I went over to talk with her the next day, and obviously she was very empathetic, very upset. And asked her about getting those secured, because the wind has been blowing them over, I guess, and which I wasn't aware of, but through what happened, obviously she's missing a couple of teeth. I think they're going to have to end up pulling it. They thought they could save it and get it out. I think they're going to, hopefully it would drop down, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think they're going to have to pull it out. Anyway, Miss Walker, he already had him removed from the field. I mean, that's, to me, that was an executive command there. I mean, she was concerned about safety of kids. She had him removed. And before I forget about that, I think that's a little extreme. I think what we can, these kids need these soccer goals. I mean, they move on to Lincoln School where there's more soccer goals. And we do have competition, so these kids need to be out there. I think we can get those back in there and get them secured. I mean, it's not that hard. Sandbags is a little extreme, but I think there's some high quality tie downs, low profile, no trip hazards. I think we can get those going again. Anyway, days went by, and about 5 days later, I went by Lincoln School, and I know that theirs has been going over too, and I noticed that they were not secured. And I'm thinking, well, why are they not secured? I mean, we just had a child traumatized, I think the whole school was, with the kids around her. And I did contact the administrator of Lincoln, Miss Cowan. She was unaware of it. I think she'd been trying to be notified by Miss Walker about it, but obviously Miss Cowan was sick, and the day I tried to talk to her, she's overwhelmed, busy. I mean, she's having to fill in as a teacher, so she was super busy. But anyway, she took the time to talk with me by phone, and within 2 hours, she wasn't aware of the situation, but within 2 hours, She called me back and said they're scared. If you look now, there's sandbags on them. So I commend both administrators for their decision to keep this school district safe. But my real concern is, why was it the supervisor? I mean, why did he not make that call? I mean, even to my family, I mean, my granddaughter was traumatized. I mean, you couldn't call the family. You couldn't call the Lincoln school to say, hey, we got a problem here, and have it secured that second. So that's not a question that for me to ask you, but I think it's a question maybe the board should be asking. I mean, to me, with all these kids, especially the young kids, I mean, their safety should be number one. Should be at the top of your list. And not notifying the little school that we got a problem, or the middle school, or the Lincoln school that we got a problem, isn't at the top of your list, in my opinion. So, I mean, should we be asking more questions? I mean, are these kids really safe out there? I mean, it went by me. Surely some administrator at the top should be making his rounds. I mean, what else is, I mean, are there protective caps that are missing off these secured playground equipment? I mean, does anybody looking at them? Are they being inspected? What about our fence? I mean, we got a lot of fence out there these kids play around on. Are there any jagged edges that you can get hurt on? I mean, is anybody doing those inspections? Anyway, I'm just throwing it up there. I have a concern.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will take that into consideration and have some discussion about it. I appreciate you coming out.
And I just have one more thing. Your comments to me, sarcastic comments to me over the last 2 years in public, your greetings sarcastically is totally unprofessional. And that shows me disrespect. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stowe.
Thank you.
Any other visitors? One of you lovely people gonna come up and say anything? No? Are you sure?
Taylor, you're up.
All right, I'll let you off the hook. All right, we'll move on to item 5, the consent agenda. Before you are the minutes for the November 11th meeting, the cash summary report, check journal, activities account, cash balance, and then I believe there were some donations that are listed in there as well.
Correct. On the cash balance report, this was done as of Tuesday of last week. We did have a deposit, so a lot of these negatives will be rectified whenever Taylor is back in. A lot of it is transfers that need to be made. So we did receive our allotment from the general fund as well as an allotment for the LOB. So that'll rectify those.
You want to talk a little bit about the donations?
Sure. And chime in, Mrs. Cowan, if you want to. The one of the classes wanted to update their robotics equipment. Went through a organization called DonorsChoose.org and was gifted $5,000 to fully cover an update to robotics equipment. And then Scott's Welding donated a bench. It's called a Buddy Bench. And then there'll be some work through some books, a book that goes along with it to kind of help kids if they need a buddy to sit on the bench or if they want to be a buddy. So, I mean, am I describing that all correctly?
If they don't have somebody to play with and don't know how to approach somebody, they can sit on the bench, and we train the kids to reach out to those students and try to include them. Kind of a less confrontational way to make friends. Mrs. Schneider wrote the robotics grant, so shout out to her. She did a really good job with it. It was within a week that I got funded, so.
Awesome. Alright. Anybody have any questions?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All in favor? Passes 6-0. All right, we will move on to item 6, old business. First item is daycare lease agreement.
So I did review the lease agreement and remove any of the other, kind of subsidiary agreements that were hanging out there, in terms of custodial use or any of that types of things, just to focus it completely on the usage of the land. So I believe I've got all those done and would be asked for, my recommendation would be to go ahead and approve this. Then we'll send it on to ABCC for their final approval and sign off on the daycare agreement.
And Don, has he reviewed this final draft that you've done?
After you guys approve it, I will send it to Dawn for final review and then send it to ABCC. Good point.
So I move to approve the agreement between USD 431 and ABCC Daycare for land use pending the review of the district's lawyer.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agreement between USD 431 and ABCC Daycare pending lawyer approval. All in favor? Passes 6-0. Item B, just solar discussion.
So my intent was to provide you with some more detailed information on the work that has been taking place between myself and GRP Wagman in terms of like how much the cost would be, how much savings we would have. I received that Friday and did not feel like I had enough time to review that material before I presented it to you. One thing that I in this particular situation, I don't want to misspeak. I want to have all my ducks in a row before I present to you, so that there's not something misspoken and it ends up, I just don't want that to happen. I believe this could be a benefit to the district as a whole, but I also want to make sure that it's not a too good to be true type of situation. So my full intent after talking to Becky and Sarah was to send this information on to you. After getting the information, I just didn't feel like I was prepared to pass that on. Does that make sense to everybody? Mm-hmm. I want to get the information. I think we should move forward with it, but I don't want to do anything until I'm 100% sure with it as well.
So we'll just look for that in one of the weekly items.
Probably a weekly update.
Okay.
And then further information at the next board meeting.
Okay. All right, item C, school improvement draft.
So we met November 20th as our district leadership team. They had presented to you as well at the November meeting, talking about how we had agreed upon standards alignment as our fundamental that we're going to be focusing on this year, and then professional learning and professional collaboration will be the two areas of focus. We also went through, I provided a document to you. It's a little bit difficult to read unless you blow it up a lot, but we worked on our lead indicators. We worked on some context as to why we decided on those lead indicators, and then how we're going to measure progress. And then as we move through this progress, we'll be looking at a 6-month target. So in the area of standards alignment for professional learning, for 6 months, we've decided 100% of our staff will begin the process of training in standards alignment. And in professional collaboration at 6 months, district will develop collaboration teams and survey staff for desired collaboration expectations. And then at 1 year, 100% of our staff will be formally trained and beginning to implement standards alignment. And then district collaboration expectations and policies completed and supported by educators on grade level and vertical teams. So those are our 6-month and 1 year targets to move forward with our school improvement plan. I'll be submitting this plan to the state. I kind of reworked some of the wording. I'll be sending it to the DLT, and then later this week I'll be sending it to the state. So questions about any of that? We've already talked to, in related news, we've talked that our is it February in service? Is that it? Yeah, February in service will begin the process of bringing people from the outside to help lay some of the groundwork for standards alignment. So we'll be looking at using that entire day in that focus.
Any questions? All right, we'll move on to item 7, new business. I don't think we have any tonight.
No, not tonight.
All right, so we'll move on to 8, reports, and we'll start with Mr. Crowdis for the superintendent report.
So a couple items. I've been keeping you updated on the auditorium lighting upgrade. We were able to get that completed today. We upgraded all of the lighting to LED lighting, upgraded a lot of the systems and control systems to that. Just one particular bar, and Joel can talk to this as well, one particular bar would have a draw of about 60 amps on the old system. It knocks it all the way down to about 3 amps on the new system. So a lot more energy efficient. No heat is created. That's always a major issue when it comes to theater lighting. There's no heat generated with these LEDs, and a lot of the controls can be used through an app, and a lot more controls within the system as well. You guys had your demonstration. That go okay this afternoon?
Yeah. Overall, you said about 90% less energy being used. So
Nice.
A lot less energy being used. These bulbs have average life of like 50,000 hours, whereas before we were replacing them every other year.
Mhm.
And like this crowd said, you can get an app on an iPad or a phone, and you can control the lights down on the floor too as well. So yeah, we just got to run through on how to run the program. It's pretty easy. Drew Reisner actually worked with our sound before, and so he'll be kind of our expert in house. I know enough just to get him going. So
Just to
he'll
turn
be
on.
real nice.
Yeah.
Real nice. And
Okay.
we can do a lot of different. We're just touching maybe 1% of the iceberg on what we can actually do with it. So
Yeah.
money well spent.
Yeah, I think so. And, Joel and I were talking about it earlier today. Really, there hasn't been any major updates to the system since the tornado. So I think we got our money's worth out of that. Mr. Gary Parr did talk about a little bit with us about some of the drawbacks to our sound system. That's something that we're, looking to have him go ahead and quote us, and see if we can make that happen in the near future. Any questions about the auditorium? As the weather gets cooler, we've had a few hiccups in our HVAC systems, just equipment going bad. Tyler's on it. Tyler's in communication with P1 in terms of trying to make sure we get the right equipment put in. So, as far as I know, everybody's pretty aware of the systems that we've got down right now. We're not in any danger of too cold of weather, but we're hoping by the end of the week we'll have most everything up to speed. We have been notified of some of the limitations of the water service lines. Roosevelt School does have galvanized pipe. That doesn't mean that it's dangerous or anything. There's a lot of places that has galvanized pipe, but we're also working with the city to make sure that we know what the service line has been. So I know there's a lot of people in town that has been made aware of these types of surveys that have been going around. Tyler, through his water well training, has actually kept me up on this for about 18 months now. So we kind of knew that this was coming. And so we're working with the city to make sure that everything's as safe as possible. Kansas Board of Regents honored Hoisington, USD 431 Hoisington High School as a All-Star High School Award. That means that we had an Apply Kansas campaign, a FAFSA completion event, and a senior signing day or national decision day. So having those three events qualified us as being honored by KBOR as 2024 Apply Kansas All-Star High School. 148 Kansas high schools qualified for that. So I want to commend Mr. Mason, Mr. Kraft, and Ms. Randolph on hosting these events. Lincoln Elementary was also recognized as a U.S. News and World Report Lincoln Elementary Best Elementary. There was some information that came out in regards to the qualifications that went into that as well. So we want to honor Mrs. Cowan and the Lincoln Elementary staff for that as well. Before I got here, we started working with Kansas Association of School Boards, primarily on a consortium that they were going out and buying, stabilizing the purchasing of natural gas. So back in 2021, that was really a lifesaver. It saved us about $15,000 in comparison to what it could have cost us. There were districts that had over $1 million gas bills at that point in time because of the destabilization of gas and the very low temperatures. We have continued that work with Kansas Association of School Boards or Kansas Business Solutions. We are right now, we're in a consortium on natural gas where we pay $4.26 a unit for natural gas. That continues for 2 more years. And then they have already agreed on a 3-year agreement out to 2029, October of 2029. There is a rate increase of $5.78, but it is a stable rate for that entire 3 years. So the good work of KBS has continued to stabilize our budget and they continue to work on our behalf. So we appreciate that. And then just an update on some of our spending. Over the first 5 months of the 2023. July 1 of 2023 to November 30th of 23, we spent $2,016,086. For the same 5 months, we've spent $2,024,964. So we've had an increase in spending of about $8,877. So in the overall scheme of things, I kind of felt like that we were pretty well on track with where our spending is at this point in time. That's specifically for our general fund. So I felt like that was pretty good. We spend the majority of our money out of the general fund for just about everything. Some of it's salaries, some of it is, goods and services that we purchase. So we've spent just over $8,800 more. And then superintendent evaluation will be coming out to you as board members to be filled out by mid-December. We'll have that sent out by the end of this week in the electronic form that we used last time. Any questions or comments or concerns? All right, thank you.
Item B, board member reports. Kevin and Jesse and I, we attended the KASB convention last weekend, weekend before that, 2 weekends ago. Very informative, I felt. A lot of good information. I'm not really prepared with anything because I just haven't had time, but our plan was to kind of get together and let you guys know what sessions we kind of sat in on, so maybe we can touch base in January. But overall, very good convention. I recommend it if you haven't been. What do you think, Kevin? Anything to add?
I got a lot of notes for you guys to read.
It was really good though. Anybody else have anything? No? All right, we'll move on to the legislative report.
So really, the only thing I would encourage you on the legislative report is that as we were at the KASB conference, one of the things that was really talked about is fully funding special education. We did receive, or we're getting ready to receive, an allocation of the $75 million that was added to special education. But for our budget, we would still be approximately $200,000 short in fully funding special education at the percentage that is actually state statute. The other piece that I was in on a couple legislative sessions at KSB was there's still, and there's probably going to be a big push for vouchers. So the money follows the child. There's a couple pieces of information there. Number one, they're not going to call it vouchers. That doesn't poll well. The normal voter doesn't really feel like that is the way to go about it. They're going to call it tax credits or scholarships, or they're going to call it a lot of different things. Through this whole process of talking about this, there's never been a time that I've been in a meeting with other superintendents that would disagree with this if all of that money was held to the same standards as the auditing and accountability that we have to go through as school districts. If the auditing and accountability is held to the same standard and the money follows the child, then I don't really think that anybody would disagree with it. The problem is that they're just handed a $5,000 to $10,000 check and they can use it for whatever they want to. I've heard of horror stories. I'm not going to go into those of, what that money is sometimes spent for. I know we all know sometimes we hear about the extremes back and forth. But we go through an auditing process, multiple auditing processes, as well as accountability when it comes to our school improvement, accreditation, state standards, those types of things. And so we're going to hear a lot about that, and it's not ever going to be called vouchers. You'll hear about it in the news, and it won't be, we're going to give vouchers out. No, it'll be a lot of different terms that they're kind of circumventing that idea. So there will also be some changes in legislative leadership, so we're not exactly sure how that's going to look. But they don't think that they've got a supermajority, so I think there's still going to be some give and take between Governor Kelly and both the Senate and the House, because those supermajorities are razor thin, and there's not really the ability for them to overturn a veto if she were to veto some things. So it should be an interesting session. I'll try to keep you updated as much as I can. One of the things that's going to be a little bit different than last legislative session is that nobody is really up for election, as opposed to last year where everybody was up for election. So that'll definitely change the timbre of the so should be interesting this spring.
All right. Anybody have anything to add? No? Move on to item 9, consideration of district personnel. We do not have any resignations. There is the one nomination. If you guys feel like we need to go back into executive session, we can. It's up to you. Any questions on the nomination? Okay. So we have Michael Hipp has applied for and is being recommended for the assistant middle school wrestling coach.
Yes.
Okay.
I move to accept the nomination of Michael Hipp for the position of assistant middle school wrestling coach as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept nomination of Michael Hipp for assistant middle school wrestling coach. All in favor? Passes 6-0. Item 10, executive session to discuss negotiations. You said 10 minutes?
10 minutes.
Okay. I move we go into executive session for 10 minutes pursuant to discuss the exception for employee negotiations. I guess that's supposed to be employer,
yeah.
negotiations under KOMA to discuss negotiations training and negotiations letter information with Mr. Kraus present. The meeting will resume at 7:42.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, all in favor? This is 6-0. All right. Thank you. Sorry, Trish. No, you're fine. Oh, gosh. Hot mess tonight.
So you still got 30 minutes.
Yes, free to go.
Okay.
Yeah. These usually are 2 hours, but he always needs to stay at least an hour, Mr. Phelps, at least. He didn't say that.
No, he didn't tell us.
So we went.
I was like, just Sarah's coming in?
You let them go? I'm gonna have to come back for another meeting, right?
Go.
Because they didn't get their full hour.
I'm gonna stay. They didn't pay.
The kids didn't stay.
That's what I said, they have to come back for another meeting.
Okay, I'm gonna stay.
That's a rude.
It's gonna be bad, she didn't get it.
All right, coming out of executive session with no recommendations, correct?
Correct.
All right, we'll move on to 11, adjournment, is that right?
That's correct.
All right, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor to adjourn. 6-0, thank you guys, hope you all had a nice Thanksgiving.